All right, guys. So we talk about something that kind of dealt with, situation I was kind of going through briefly for, a couple hours, over this past week. The waiting, the weight of waiting, the whole aspect. Another way to look at it, I guess, is like it's quiet suffering. Now, there's a kind of there is a kind of particular. Well, let's put it this way: there is a particular kind of suffering that doesn't announce itself with dramatic fanfare. It doesn't arrive like a hurricane or a thunderclap. It starts seeping in quietly and relentlessly. It's like water finding the cracks in old stone. That suffering is kind of like that. It has a name. It's called waiting. Okay? And and if you ever been tethered, like I am here, to a hospital bed or to something of the liking in your own experience, watching the clock you know, count out the seconds starts to feel like hours. Watching the same ceiling day after day, you know exactly what I mean. Okay. So I want to talk to you today about two of the most psychologically underestimated forces a human being can endure. And they're not some flamboyant force or forces. There's something that we know personally on a daily basis throughout our lives, but they become more prevalent and more dominant in these types of situations. And what I'm talking about here is frustration and boredom. So again, not because they are the most dramatic enemies you'll face, but precisely because they're not. Okay, so that's what I want to tell them. Okay, they're silent. They don't really push themselves out there to be feelings that you experience on a daily basis, even though you might, but not to the extent of overbearing you. They are quiet ones. They are basically the ones that erode you slowly if you let them. So let's go into boredom. And really, boredom is a confrontation with the self, technically. Hey, boredom at its psychological root is not simply the absence of stimulation, it is the confrontation with the self. Now, the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, that book, which is good, a man who survived the Nazi death camps and rebuilt an entire philosophy of meaning from within them. This guy, Viktor Frankl, did that. He has that book, and it's really, really good. He observed that when a person has nothing external to distract them, they are left alone with the terrifying question, right? Now, what is that question? That is, who am I? And what does my life mean? That question does not ask gently. It really hammers in these type of situations. So when I'm lying in the hospital bed, as I'm waiting for a new heart, waiting for an organ that will literally carry my life forward, okay, I'm not wasting time. Okay. I am being stripped down. The layers of busyness, of routine, of the thousand small distractions we use to avoid ourselves, they've been removed. I don't have those things that I have on a daily basis. I'm just here in this room. And what's left? What's left is just me, just you. And that, paradoxically, is one of the most profound opportunities a human being ever receives, to be alone with your own thoughts and your own self, and start to realize that what is your own self? What are you really with all the other things around you? So you start to self reflect. And so that helps in a way, depending on your perspective. But that's what's starting to happen. Another thing that is a force that creeps in is frustration. And let's talk about that frustration. Frustration is what happens when your will, your fierce elemental desire to do something, to move forward, to assert yourself in the world, is blocked by circumstances beyond your control. And here is what, um, so put it this way, in a psychological aspect to it. So here is what is psychologically significant about that. Frustration, when handled correctly, is the forge in which resilience is built. When handled incorrectly, it becomes bitterness. And bitterness is a corrosive that destroys the very vessel that contains it. So even though I kind of get frustrated with things I can't do and I can't end up pursuing or engaging in because I'm hindered by what I am in my situation, I need to try to control that, because if I let that out of control, it can start corrode and erode my mental state in that aspect. So, this an example with the philosophy, the Stoics. Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher, emperor of Rome, a man who faced the plagues, the wars, and constant loss, wrote that the obstacle is the way. Not that the obstacle can be overcome, but that the obstacle itself is the path of development. And to mention also with all this is your frustration right now, or mine, is not a sign that something has gone wrong with my life or your life. It is evidence that the spirit is still fighting, that I have not surrendered, and that and that my will, or your will to live, is ferociously intact. Right. So let's kind of reframe this. So modern psychology confirms what ancient wisdom has always known. The way you interpret your suffering determines its effect on you far more than the suffering itself. So let me offer you a serious reframe on this. You're not merely waiting. Okay? I am not merely waiting. I am enduring. You are enduring. And endurance done consciously is a form of active participation in your own story. Every day you choose not to be consumed by bitterness. Okay? Every morning, okay, you decide to engage with people around you to find something worth noticing, something worth being grateful for. Okay, this is an exercise. I mean, I'm exercising a form of courage that most people will never be asked to demonstrate, especially when you're involved in a situation where you're basically isolated, right? So the hospital room is not a pause in my life. It's part of my life right now. And the chapters in a person's story, or my story in this case, where I faced the hardest things as far as this is concerned, okay, and basically they sit in kind of an uncertainty, and they provide the not the glue, they provide the pathway to basically get to the point where you will not bend or break into it. Okay. And those are the chapters that you wish had never happened, but you're going through and you're enduring them, because they're going to reveal a lot about your character and yourself. So, in closing, I'll say this: let this let the frustration remind you that you're still here, still fighting, still unwilling to let go. Let the boredom open the door inward, where the most important discoveries about who you are still remain to be made. And I'm getting to discover and reveal a lot about myself to myself in this position. So it is, again, self-reflecting, self-prophecy to understand what's going on with me and what am I built on. So I'm not just waiting for a heart. Basically, I'm developing one, okay, in that spiritual sense, the psychological kind, the kind built from endurance, from clarity, from the refusal to allow suffering to be meaningless. And that is the most human thing any of us ever gets to do. So leave you with those two causes, those two things that I've encountered in a hospital isolation and waiting: frustration and boredom. They build you. Don't let them break you. Okay.